Hey everybody, Tim here with today's review of James Bond, movie number 20. I can't believe I've done 20 movies already. For Die Another Day, the first movie into the 21st century. This movie came out in 2002. Overall, it's a weird movie. It's difficult to talk about because, the plot is actually pretty good, to be honest with you. I actually felt engaged in it, and it's really easy to follow, beginning to end. Whereas most Bond movies, they get so kind of weighted down in the middle, where it's always the beginning's good, the ending's good, and the middle's kind of blah. Whereas this one's pretty easy to follow. The reason it gets such a low score is actually it just kind of gets bogged down by all of the gimmicks. At this point, we've seen 2 or 3 Austin Powers movies by this point, and this is almost more of a parody of the original Bond movies than Austin Powers is. It's so over the top with all of the CGI and just everything that Bond kind of goes through that it loses the focus. Which is kind of why they completely redid the franchise starting with the next movie, is because this had such a negative reaction because of all of the gimmicks. So to kind of start from the top, work my way down, you can kind of tell it's going to be a little bit of a different movie just from the opening sequence when the bullet we actually see a bullet come at the audience, whereas usually you just see the gun being pulled. I do love, who is it? Colonel Moon in the beginning. It's kind of a funny scene where he's working out and he's punching on the boxing bag, and then when they unzip it and a guy falls out, you're like, well shit, that was way more intense than I was expecting. I actually really enjoyed that scene. We see Bond set off the detonator, and then all of the diamonds getting embedded into Zhao's skin is actually really well done technique. He actually looks really cool. It actually kind of reminds me of a character from the novel Wicked, where he has diamonds in his skin. So it was a really cool technique, and he looks pretty badass throughout the rest of the movie. And then, of course, when Moon is killed, I just kind of glossed over it. I didn't think anything about it because I was too distracted by Bond actually getting captured and tortured for 14 months. That's a long period of time in one Bond movie. That might actually cover the most amount of time. No, I take it back. The first Pierce Brosnan movie did. I think it was 9 years or something. But we see him being tortured, we see the beard growing out, we see his long hair, and then he ends up finally being traded. It's a prisoner exchange, Bond for Zhao, which is still, it's a really good technique. The opening sequence is all really well done. And so as they do the whole body scan of him, and they come up with stuff he was stung with stingrays, he was stung by scorpions and then immediately given the antidote, which kind of goes back to the opening song sequence, which was just awful. I'm sorry, Madonna, but it was bad with the Die Another Day. It's just a pop song. It was bad. So anyways, we see Robinson for his third and final appearance. Michael Madison, who's a great actor from a lot of Tarantino movies, Kill Bill and such, plays Falco. Although they don't really do anything with him. His whole character, you could have taken him out, wouldn't have changed anything. So M, I feel bad for Bond though, because M just reads him the riot act, and she's like, you had your cyanide pill, and he's like, yeah, I got rid of that years ago, which is actually kind of funny. But it turns out that an American agent was killed, and they think that Bond gave him up when he was being tortured and stuff, and so he actually has to escape MI6. She burns him, basically once again kind of taking him out of the 00 program, and he goes after Zhao into Cuba and stuff. We meet Halle Berry as the character of Jinx, who is now the second X-Men actor. We saw Famke Janssen before, who later on went to play Jean Grey, but at this point Halle Berry had already played Storm twice. So it's kind of interesting to kind of see that foil going on. We see Zhao undergoing cosmetic surgery, changing his skin color, changing his eye color, stuff like that. And once again, it starts getting more interesting with his character. I hated the scene of Jinx diving into the water, and this is one of those gimmicky scenes where there's no possible way she could have done that, and even the green screen background of her falling backwards was just awful. It was so bad. Let's see, the grave skydiving was kind of a pointless scene, and then Madonna actually makes an appearance, and at first I was really actually the whole sequence was just so over the top. Supposedly she was actually supposed to introduce him as Bond, James Bond, and kind of take that line. It was too much. Like, between the song and then her showing up in this, I wasn't into it. I did not dig it. The cockfight was actually pretty great, with just Graves and Bond like doing the old-fashioned first blood from the torso. Was actually a really good scene. Like, it wasn't necessarily a chase scene, but it was really, really well done. Let's see, the whole, like, this is where it kind of starts going over the deep end, where we see Bond back at MI6, Miss Moneypenny's dead, and Bond's, like, shooting all these people. He gets Robinson with him, and then a guard has M, and he actually shoots M to, like, save her. And John Cleese walks through the wall, and he's like, "You just shot your boss." And he takes off the sunglasses, and the whole thing was a hologram. And it's like, no. Like, that whole sequence needed to be taken out. And then he has the line of like, "Oh, I mean, it was just a flesh wound, she'll survive," which is clearly a reference to like Monty Python and the Holy Grail with John Cleese again. But the whole thing was just awful. Like, no holograms. The old relics part was actually kind of cool, where he activates like the jetpack, which I'm pretty sure was from Thunderball, but I'm not 100% sure. He gives him a watch, and he even says, like, "I believe this is your 20th watch," which they could have made a reference that this is the 20th James Bond movie in a different way, other than just saying, "Hey, I've given you 20 watches." They could have done something different, but it was a good reference. The worst part, probably of any Bond part, is the invisible Aston Martin. Like, this is where it's like not even, like I said, it's more parody than anything. It's more of like a Star Trek feature, with like John Cleese walking around the invisible Aston Martin, and just like, it was just, I don't know, I rolled my eyes. I had to pause it and process, like, why would they even think that that's a cool idea? Couldn't do it. Anyway, the Ice Palace was actually a pretty badass set. I mean, it was way over the top, but it seemed like a Bond villain type of thing, though. I mean, we've seen, like, Blofeld in Volcanoes, so why not have this guy in an Ice Palace? So I was like, why the hell not? Who cares? We see Graves and Zhao teaming up together, and this is when we realize that Graves is actually Colonel Moon, and he has gone through the process of changing himself. So, I mean, overall, that was kind of a big twist. Like, I should have expected it from the beginning, but like I said, I thought that Moon was such, like, who cares of a character that I just glossed over him. And the fact that he actually came back as Graves was kind of like, was that really necessary, or could we have just kept Graves as the villain? But whatever. Once again, going back to the whole CGI thing, like Jinx being killed by the laser, her being almost killed by the laser was a great shout out to like the Sean Connery years. Bond and Mr. Kill, like, fighting with the lasers just everywhere was too much. Like, that took me out immediately, and then especially Jinx, like, killing him was just gratuitous. Like, it wasn't necessarily needed. Finding out that the Frost was a traitor was a surprise to nobody. Let's see, the car chase through the palace as a car chase was pretty badass, but the fact that he uses like the invisible feature and the spike feature to like go up so Zhao goes past him was just stupid. Like, I could not handle that stupid car. When Colonel Moon and General Moon finally see each other and confront each other, not surprised. The whole electrical suit was too, like, Spider-Man villain. Did not like that. Jinx killed Frost. Again, no surprise to anybody. At this point, we're just getting more and more cliches throughout it. Let's see, Graves going through, like Bond activating his parachute and him going through the plane engine was actually pretty cool. The helicopter dropping out of the plane was too much. I didn't like it. And then, once again, like the stupid sunglasses hologram thing of Miss Moneypenny, like visualizing her and Bond making out. Did not need it. That was something, after 20 years, nobody wanted that. Nobody asked for it. Nobody needed to see it. Like, this is one where if Lois Maxwell was still alive, I would love to have seen her opinion and just have her freak out, because I'm sure she flipped a table when she saw that. So, if she saw that, I'm assuming she saw all of these movies. But overall, like, I don't know, like, parts of this movie were actually really well done and could have been a really great Bond movie, but then other parts were so over the top that it brought everything else down. So for those who have seen this one, what did you guys think as the final Pierce Brosnan movie? What did you think about Halle Berry and the whole, like, gene sequencing, changing cosmetically type thing, which does go back to, like, the Blofeld era? Go ahead, let me know. Thank you guys for everything, and I will see you guys next time for Daniel Craig's debut of Casino Royale.